let's just jump more deeper into AMDP. So as we said, AMDP is a ABAP managed database procedure. Okay. So what I think is, or we can say what we should be knowing is, if we just break down this word ABAP managed database procedure, then one word you would be able to figure out over here is called a database procedure. It means it is a database procedure over here. It is managed by ABAP. So it is a database procedure. Who is managing it? You can say it is currently managed by ABAP. It means if I consider a skeleton of a AMDP, so by this word, I can expect that AMDP in SAP ERP system cannot be managed, or we can say created, without coordination from ABAP. So if I think of a structure of an AMDP, how it would be looking alike. So we always say, okay, what do we have? I'll just say, okay, I do have AMDP method. I never say I have AMDP functions and everything. It's always an AMDP method. Okay. So when I say I do have AMDP method, it means where actually it would be residing. It would be residing in some sort of AMDP class. So I can think as of saying, if I consider a class would contain, for example, class XYZ, and I would be having some sort of definition. Okay. And I would be having some sort of class XYZ, and there would be some sort of implementation. So as we do have class definition and implementation, and if I want to create a AMDP method inside that, then in the definition, I would be defining some sort of method saying AMDP method. And this particular method I would be implementing somewhere over here saying AMDP method. And here I'll just say, okay, let's just say AND method. Now, as you can see here, I wrote AMDP method. Before that, I wrote AMDP class. So how can I make a class, first of all, a AMDP class? That would be a question, because if I make a class, a AMDP class, then the sorry, then the method which is inside that would automatically become an AMDP method. Okay, so if I just go inside this particular system, again, Okay, so I think the server is up. So if I try creating some sort of AMDP class, or let's just start with something that we already know. Let's just start with a class. So I'll just say, okay, ZCL AMDP, for example, a 01. I'll just say create. Here I do have a class, so I'll just say, okay, an AMDP class. I'll just make it a public and it would be a usual class. Okay, I'll just say save. Now, if I just write a class with a description AMDP class, will it make that class a AMDP class? No. Okay. For that, what we have to do is we have to depend on one more thing called a interface. Okay. So if I do have an interface called IF AMDP marker, and we are working on HANA database. Okay. So if you see what I am getting over here, it says the class AMDP contains stored procedure. Okay. If you see, it says changing class containing ABAP managed database procedure is not supported by SAP GUI. So the moment you introduce this IF AMDP marker HDB, the system would start recognizing your particular class as an AMDP class. An AMDP class contains a database procedure, and database procedures are written into SQL script. Now, my whole SAP GUI only understands ABAP. Okay. And that is why it won't allow you to maintain or create or change anything which is written into an SQL script. Okay. You might also remember that whenever we are working on CDS, that CDS is also not written into ABAP. And that's why we are not able to use the SAP GUI for that. Okay. We were just able to view the CDS view, but we were not able to modify anything. Same goes with the AMDP class. So what I can do over here is I'll just copy the name of this class that is already something that we created. And I will try opening the class over here. So I'll just say, okay, open ABAP development object. And here I'll just pass the name of the class. So if I just open this class over here, it would be in a code-based interface. Okay. Earlier at SAP GUI level, it used to be a wizard-based interface, and here it's a code-based interface. Now, if you see, as we were describing over here in Excel, we have two sections. One is definition, another one is implementation. In the definition section, okay, we would be defining a method, but before that, let's just convert this normal class into an AMDP class. And for that, what we were trying to achieve? We were just trying to pass the interfaces. What was the name? The name used to be AIF AMDP. I can say marker and HDB. So this is the name of my, just happen. Maybe I might have wrote some sort of wrong syntax. No worries. So ultimately, I just wrote IF AMDP marker interface HANA database. So if you just observe the name closely over here, how I am maintaining, or you can say creating a AMDP class, I just wrote the name. So the syntax says it should be IF AMDP marker, and here it should be the name of database. SAP has only released AMDP currently for HANA database. Going forward, it might also come up with some sort of AMDP for another set of database. So it might also start supporting another database. And that's why if you see the name it has kept is very generic. Currently, it is only meant for HANA database. Okay. So once I say I have made this particular um, class in AMDP class, next thing I might try doing is I might try creating an AMDP method inside that. Okay. So before creating an AMDP method, my first ask, or you can say my first step would be to know what is an AMDP method, what all does it contain, and what all can it contain. So the question we would be having over here is, if I am talking of the AMDP method, then what all kind of AMDP method I can have? So I can have two kind of AMDP method ideally. One is my database procedure. Another one is my database function. Now, one word we are already attached with is a method. It means whatever we generate, be it a database procedure or a database function, what ultimately technically we would be generating, we would be just generating a method. Okay. And if I say I would be generating a method, then the question would be, then what would be difference over here? Okay. So to figure out the difference, let's just first figure out, okay, what is the similarity of this particular database procedure with AMDP method, and what is the similarity of database function with AMDP method. So when I talk about a method, it can have a importing parameter, it can have a exporting parameter, it can have changing parameter, and it can have a returning parameter. Okay. So when I say a database procedure, then how many importing parameter a database procedure can take? I can say n number of, I can say 1 to n. But when it comes to a database function, how many importing parameter it can take? It can also take 1 to n number of, or I can say, to be more specific, 0 to n, because I can also have a database procedure without any number of input parameters. So I can have a database procedure with 0 to n number of input parameter, and same way I can have a database function. So with reference to importing parameter, there is no difference as such. When it comes to a exporting parameter, my database procedure can have a 0 to n number of exporting parameter. But when it comes to a database function, then exporting parameter is something which is not applicable. Okay. So database function don't work on exporting and changing parameter. It only works on returning parameter. Okay. And how many returning parameter I can have over here? I can have only one returning parameter. When it comes to a changing, same goes with database procedure. Here I can have 0 to n. But when it comes to returning parameter, a database procedure cannot have a returning parameter. So it means the database procedure that we would be creating, okay, won't be having any sort of returning parameter associated with it. But if you see, if I can have n number of exporting parameters, then why would I actually cry for just one returning parameter which my method is not supporting? I can just send it as an exporting parameter. That's also very straightforward. And that is why mostly the AMDP methods that you would be creating would be of a database procedure type. I can say this is mostly used and this is rarely used. Okay, now, so let's just start with something that we already know. Though I have created an AMDP class, I do have very frequently asked interview questions which says how if in an AMDP class, can I have a normal methods as well? Or can an AMDP class contain a normal method as well as AMDP method at the same time? So the answer is yes. So can a AMDP method, or you can say AMDP class, contain non-AMDP and AMDP method at same time? Answer is yes, it is possible. Let's just start with that. Let's just try creating some sort of method over here, which is my normal method. Okay, I want to uh, have certain sort of methods defined in my particular AMDP class. I'll start with something I know already. So it means I'll just start creating a normal method first, and then I will go with a AMDP method. For defining a method in a class, we know that we have a for defining any sort of method in an AMDP class, we do have public section, private section, and protected section. We would be going with a public because ultimately the visibility area of the class doesn't make any effect for us while generating a AMDP method. So I'll just say, okay, I want to generate a method. So when I say that I want to generate a method, then it would be an instance method, that it's generated and can be referred via the instance. Okay. Now over here, I'll just give the name of a method saying, okay, get PO data over here. And I'll be just defining its set of input and output parameters. So I'll just say get PO data would be having a set of importing parameters. So we would be getting a set of input over here, and say it would be passed by value, and it would be P underscore BUKRS. And whose type is BUKRS. We are just specifying the data element. We want set of data to also be returned in output. So I'll just say, okay, exporting, again passed by value, and I'll just write ETPO data. And here we would be defining some sort of list of field we need. So I'll just define some sort of table type over here. So let me just also define the table type. So I'll just say making a class, AMDP class. Yeah, I'll just go with a type declaration. Here I'll just say types begin of PYPO data. Here I'll just define few set of field that we would be using for that. Example. And I'll just define a table type for this. So I do have a table type declared. I do have a method defined, okay, which is having a set of input and output parameter, but I am missing on an implementation. So I'll just put a cursor over here. Okay. Once after clicking, you would be prompted whether you want to add an implementation. So I'll just say yes, add the implementation. I'll just say save. If you see, I have not done anything over here. My current implementation is currently blank. If I just say activate this particular class, then it would be successfully activated. So it's activating certain things. So that's why it might take some time. Okay, so my object is activated. So if you see, I have not written any sort of code logic. But as I know ABAP, let's just start with the code logic. So I'll just say, I want to get the set of PO data. So I'll just say, okay, get PO data over here. And I'll just write my select query saying, select EBLN, BUKRS, BSART, something that we already know and we learned in the last days. Then OpenSQL syntax I'm writing over here. You can also go with the classical ABAP. That's also not an issue. Say year name is first and A date. From EKQ, okay, and into table. Which table I would like to fill? I can say ETPO data. And here I'll just specify where my BUKRS is equal to P underscore BUKRS. because that is the input. After activating this, it seems I am fine over here because I have the right set of fields selected and I am just populating it in the output. Let's just try to consume this somewhere. So I'll just say open SAP GUI logon. Either I can go from here, Control 6, or I can just directly place Control 6 over here. I'll just say SA38 over here, and I can say Z B22 AMDP consumption. First, we would be consuming AMDP class, but the method is normal method. So here I'll say so I would like to call AMDP method. Now, as we know, that's an instance method. So what would be my first step? I have to instantiate my object. I'll just say data LO obj equal to new. I'll just specify the class name, and as constructor don't have any parameter, I'll just pass it as a blank. Now, I'll just say LO obj, and I'll just say, okay, get PO data is the method which I want to call. So I would be prompted for one input. So let me just define some sort of parameters also over here. So I'll just say PBU KRS over here. It would be EKKO dash BU KRS. And here I'll be just getting some sort of LTPO data. Okay. And then we would display the ALU. So for displaying an ALV, we would go again into end of selection. This is one time because the same program we would be using again and again. So I'll just say CL, SALV table. I'll just say factory method. And here I'll just pass my LTPO data, and I'll just try to call this. Now I'll just activate this as well. And let me just get the set of purchase orders over here. And I'm getting the set of purchase order over here. It is getting populated from the my normal